Okay, what are my signs here? -3. -3. Thank you, those of you who are sitting quietly. So then, what's my next step? Equals 0. And then what's my next step after that?
Zero product.
What's that? Zero product property. That's right. Very good. N plus 8 is 0. Nice job knowing what that's called. N minus 3 equals 0.
That's you, bro.
And then we solve each one of those. N equals -8. N equals 3. And so our answer is N equals -8 and 3. Does it matter what order we put that? Can we put the 3 first and then the -8? So what do we do on number 3? Is that in standard form? Yes. Yeah. So what do we do to solve it? We're going to factor it. We're going to make our x. Again, what goes on the top?
15 times 5, which is 7.
5 times 15. So using the method that I use, if you use another method, that's fine. So taking this times this gives us 75. And then adds to 28. So the reason we do that is it makes the x work. If we don't do that, it will not make the x work. So what numbers work? Let's play 75 that add up to 25 and 3. 25 and 3. So n plus 25, n plus 3. Pay attention here because this is where a lot of students make mistakes. What do I do next?
Divide it by 5.
Good. Divide it by 5. So the reason we multiplied 5 by 15 was to make the x work. So this is n plus 5, and then we slide the 5 to the front. 5n plus 3, and then we use our zero product property. And we get -3/5 and -5. Okay, on to the notes. Let me pass that.
Yeah, like I said, like,
Okay.
yeah. And then like,
Once more.
isn't there a reading box?
Here. You can't tell what that is?
Honestly,
Yeah, you're right. That has the big. Pets make people smile, so I want to make you smile. Okay, so what do we do on number 1? Something different there.
X minus 3.
So there's a shorter way. That would work, but it's more work than we need to do. Yeah, square root both sides. So we want to get that square part by itself. So this time, the square is an expression, x minus 3 quantity squared. So what do we get what happens when we take the square root and we have x minus 3 squared? What do we get here? X minus 3. Questions on that? Okay, pay attention to this next step. What's the square root of 49? 7. This is the step that is frequently forgotten. You set x minus 3 equal to -7. So this is a little different in that we have that expression, so we have to still do the positive and the negative. So we're going to set the expressions equal to this +7 and -7. And we get 10 and negative 4. Let's talk about that. If I took a 10 and put it in my original equation, 10 minus 3 is 7, squared gives me 49. What about negative 4 minus 3 squared? What is negative 4 minus 3? It's negative, like a negative plus a negative, so it's like it's negative 7 quantity squared, which is 49 also. So both of those numbers work in the original. Okay, what do we do on number 2? Square root. Again, we want a square root. So then square and the square root undo each other, and we get b minus 7. And what's the square root of 100? 10. And then what do we do right next to it? That's right. B minus 7 equals negative 10. So both the positive and the negative. Did you have a question on something?
I just wrote it wrong.
Oh. So we get 17. And negative 3. What do we do in number 3? Same thing, but what do we do first on number 3? Yes, we cannot distribute that 3 because the square comes first. We would have to square it first. We don't want to. We want to solve it, and we want to use the square root because that's the easiest way. So we want to get rid of that 3 there by dividing both sides by 3. Does that make sense? So then we get x plus 2 quantity squared is 25. And what next? Square root. So we get x plus 2 is 5. What's my other equation? X plus 2 equals negative 5. And then solve them. And we get x is 3. And this is like plus a negative 2. And that's going to be a negative 7. Okay, what do we do first on number 4? So this one doesn't have a quantity squared, so we're going to isolate the r squared. So we're going to add 5 first.
Now we divide.
So what's our next step here? Divide by 4. And we get r squared equals negative 6. What next? Square root. So we have r is equal to the square root of negative 6. How do we simplify the square root of negative 6? We're going to use an I because why, Nick? Good. Good. So this is going to be equal to r equals I times. So the I is because of the negative. Does that make sense? And then the 6, if we wanted to simplify 6, it's only 2 and 3. There aren't any pairs. So some of you did that in your head. Fantastic. You don't have to write that out. So I square root 6 because there's no pairs. So it's I square root 6. That's one of my answers. What's my other answer? negative I squared 6.
You just put the. You can just put the plus.
Absolutely, plus and minus. But make sure, like, there was one student who just put a plus there. So if you do the plus or minus, you have to vote for plus or minus. You can do that. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one. Is there anybody that's still looking here?
Almost stopped.
Sure. Okay, what do we do first on number 5? Minus 4 first. We're isolating the n squared. Quiet, please. Thank you. Hold on. This is the last question. You can hold on just a little bit longer. So 100 n squared equals 64. What next? Good. Divide by 100. So some students want to take the square root here, and it would be okay. It just makes it more complicated. It's easier if we divide by 100 first, I think. So then we get n squared equals 64 over 100. What next? Simplify it.
Dividing.
So we could simplify it. It turns out if we get rid of the square first, it'll be easier, but that would work. So we're going to take the square root of both sides, right? And when we have a square root of a fraction, we can take the square root of the numerator divided by the square root of the denominator. What's the square root of 64? 810. Does that simplify? So that's easier to simplify, and we can divide both of them by 2. Please do that in your head if you can. So 4 over 5, and that's one of my answers. What's my other answer? Negative 4 over 5. Okay, go ahead and do the U try.
No!
Maybe I Indeed. Can I get somebody to talk about that? Okay.